Hello and welcome back to our How to Paint Warhammer 40k Space Marine project. This one specifically being a Dark Angel. Now last time we went ahead and finished with our base layer, which is Caliban Green. Underneath that we have a layer of Abaddon Black just to help with the kind of darker tone, also a natural kind of shade. Um, Underneath that obviously is a priming layer as well. It's probably the most important. You really don't want to forget that because it helps not only keep your paint on your model, but helps it from, especially before you add varnish, wearing off, right? If you end up scratching it or, I don't know, hitting it against anything, it helps kind of prevent any damage from that. So with this second part, we're going to be jumping right into. We're going to go ahead and start on kind of the smaller details. And I didn't mention it in the last one, but we're also going to be using the kind of nice shade of Balthazar Gold here. Now, the thing about Balthazar Gold is it's kind of my least favorite of the two options that I use for gold. Ironically enough, I feel like it's more of a brass, right? It's much kind of too light to be a gold color, in my opinion. But I find that for Dark Angels, and especially mixing with the Caliban Green itself, it's a decent enough shade. As opposed to something like Retributor armor, that's hard to say, um, which is what I usually use with something like Ultramarines, right? So we're going to go ahead and get our brush wet here. And again, we're using kind of a beat up brush. I just want to kind of showcase that you don't need the latest and greatest best equipment for painting, right? This is beginner friendly. This is, you're jumping in kind of on a budget. Maybe you don't want to spend too much if it's your first model. And that's more what we're focused towards. So we're going to go ahead and start here. And with our Retributor armor, what we kind of want is to do the shoulder pauldrons. You can kind of see that, if it'll focus, the ridge along there, the edge, I guess, on both sides there. And that's really, we'll probably be doing the bulbs on the leg as well. But there's not too much to do. So we'll get a little bit on our brush here. Something I didn't talk about on the last video that I meant to, which I find equally as important as thinning paints. I'll get a bit of water on our brush as we say that. Is kind of how much paint you put on your brush. It's, you can have your paint as thin as you want, but if you have too much on and you're trying to apply it, it's still gonna go on roughly, right? It'll be messy. It won't look good, and you want to avoid that as much as possible. And you can see we made a bit of a mistake there, but that's okay. We're doing thin layers. So, see if we can get a decent enough angle on here. Once we're finished here, we can actually go back over it. Good lord, I haven't been painting Warhammer in kind of a while. I forget how awkward these pauldrons are to do. I've actually been painting 3D prints from a group called DM Stash. They do phenomenal models. They have a tribes page, which, if you don't know anything about 3D printing, there's a website called My Mini Factory, and they do something. It's kind of like a monthly subscription deal. Good lord, I am ruining these pauldrons, but that's okay. We will fix that shortly, I promise. I'm also using the back of the brush here. You can see there's kind of a curve to it, and that's useful for edge. I don't want to say edging, but I don't have a better word for it. You just kind of want to lightly run your brush against the pauldron there to make sure you don't get it all over, which I'm managing to do anyway. So You know, do as I say, not as I do kind of thing, right? There we are. Um, and it looks horrible, and it looks pretty sloppy, but that's okay. For a first starting layer, um, you know, it's covering what we want to cover. I'm going to do the underside of the pauldrons real quick, and then we will be finished with that. But normally I'd be taking my time. For the sake of this video, though, and again, we're doing horribly awkward angles here. This is another pro to doing sub-assemblies while you're painting. But for the sake of this video, you know, we kind of want to do things a little bit faster. You can always take plenty of time on your own. You know, no one's rushing you. Good Lord. There we are. You know, you have plenty of time. If you make a mistake, you can always go back and go over it before you finish your model. And if, you know, worst comes to worst, it's not permanent, right? You can always just strip your paint, do it all again. So there's, you know, when I first started, there was kind of this constant fear of like, I don't want to ruin my model, and I feel like when I try to paint, that's what's going to happen, which takes you down a route of not wanting to paint as much because you're afraid of making mistakes. And that's kind of a hurdle that I found was hard to get over as a beginner. But you learn pretty quickly, especially once you, you know, really make your first big mistake, that, you know, everything can be covered up or can be redone. And I am ruining this. I promise. Normally I'm much better at this. It's kind of a mix of the trying to get this on camera at a weird angle, and yeah, normally I'm much closer to the what I'm painting. Also, I haven't done miniatures for a while. I've been doing 75 millimeter scale, which, let me tell you, going from miniatures to painting 75 millimeter, it's a world of difference, right? You're able to make much bigger. Please focus. Thank you. You're able to use much bigger brushes. You're able to cover much bigger areas more quickly. And if you make mistakes, they are much harder to notice. And I love that. Especially because I'm someone with kind of shakier hands, especially when I'm painting. So bigger models, less grounds to make a mistake, is something that I am all about. And we'll get another one of these tricky situations where I'm sure you can see the back of those two bolts there are in a really kind of tough to reach spot. So we'll see if we can't nab those. And we kind of botched it. That's okay. That's okay. We're allowed to botch things. We're allowed to ruin them. We'll go ahead and get some more water in our brush. And I could go immediately over this in Caliban green, but for the sake of getting all of our mistakes out of the way in one go, we're going to go ahead and switch to lead belcher here. And we're going to start finishing up our bolter. I like to do, and I've seen a lot of different ways of doing this. You know, some people do the where the stock should be, kind of the back area. Some people like to keep it all black. I've seen that as well. But personally, I like to have the clip silver. Focus, thank you. I like the clip silver, and I like the muzzle silver. I feel like any more than that kind of distracts from the rest of your model. And it's a bit of a hassle to kind of do the smaller, more detailed sections. And see if we can't get in here. Again, we're kind of making a mess. That's okay. If we get the hard to reach areas, the kind of bigger areas after that that we have to clean up are much easier to take care of, right? That's kind of the general rule of thumb. So, very simple, very easy. Get that out of the way. And actually, another thing you can do here, before I forget, open up our lead belcher again because I jumped the gun, is the backpack. I like to do the vents on the back here. I like to do them silver. I like to do the, please focus, thank you. I like to do the little hoses here. I think they look decent being either silver or gold, depending on, you know, the kind of look that you want. Maybe the sergeants in your chapter get gold vents. I know with my Ultramarines, they're meant to have red helmets for sergeants, but I never really do that. I do gold helmets. And it's small details like that that kind of make, you know, each model unique. Is some people do different things depending on even something as simple as like the ranking of your units. You know, maybe you have a model that's you've taken to tabletop games before and he's done exceptionally well, and you change him from just a normal guy to, you know, maybe a sergeant or a lieutenant or something, or maybe you just want to make him recognizable on the table, right? So you go back and you change what essentially looks the same on every other model, like the back, I don't know what this is, a heat shield kind of deal, and you make it silver because your unit should be distinguished and you want people to be able to tell that this is your best model, right? This guy has done wonders for you on the battlefield consistently. If our camera will focus, please. There we go. I think it's focusing on the paint in the background. Maybe we'll try moving that, right? There we go. I'm hoping to get a better camera at some point. This is actually my first videos, so we are running with some kind of jank gear. I'm sure you've noticed by, you know, the brush quality. But, yeah, we work with what we got. Now, we also have some venting on the face. And actually, if I can find it here, I'm sure I have a much smaller brush. There we are. Accidentally knocked the camera. I promise I'll try to avoid doing that. The nice thing about the brushes you can get on Amazon, I usually get them in like 10 packs. They come with a variety of sizes. You can get a lot of them, and they end up eventually covering your desk to the point where you're always going to have the size you want just out of arm's reach. The other hand, though, your desk is also covered in brushes and paint, and maybe that's not something you want. So be mindful of that. All right. Now, we'll also cover the kind of cables here. And normally I kind of let Null Oil take care of that. It'll kind of fill in the recesses. And, you know, that's always a choice. Just for the sake of uniformity, though, I think on my other model, never mind, I'm lying out of my teeth. I did not even do the heat shield on that one. So there you go, I'm a liar. We are, I think, finished with lead belcher for now, though. Yeah, good enough. So now we are going to go back to our Caliban green, and we're just going to do a very quick kind of, if we can get all the silver off my paint. Good lord, that is heresy, mixing paints and the paint pot. I am so sorry. Maybe. There we go. My paint was actually starting to dry out there. Close your paint pots. That's a useful tip for you. You don't want your paints drying out. So now we're going to go over and cover up the monstrosity that is these pauldrons, right? Because I am not good. And actually our paint's a little thick. But that's okay, because again, the amount of paint you put on your brush can kind of negate that. So it shouldn't look too bad once we're finished, right? That's the hope, at least. And you can get a pretty good telling from just when you're applying it whether it's going to look bad or not. And I didn't see this, but I absolutely ruined the back of this poor model. That's the problem with shaky hands. I'm sure some of you can relate, especially if you're just starting out. Shaky hands kind of steered me away from painting for a while. Especially when I first got into the hobby, and you first open up your box of Space Marines and you just kind of look at the scale, right? Like, especially like if you've never seen them before. I got into Warhammer reading the books, so went ahead and ordered some Space Marines after finishing the first of the Horus Heresy novels. I was really into it. Man, I've seen awesome paint jobs online. I want to do that. That's a crazy thing that, it's incredibly talented people do. I want to do that. And then you open up your box and you realize that these dudes are tiny. And man, that's a real daunting moment right there, right? And they also, they don't tell you when you're first jumping in that, hey, you got to put them together yourself, right? You got to cut them off the sprues and assemble them yourself. I went ahead thinking that like they were put together already. So I get my first box off of eBay, of all things, actually. Slightly cheaper deal than I found on Amazon or anything. So I went ahead and bought a box of I think it was Assault Intercessors. And they were on the sprue. They didn't come in the box, actually. They came in plastic wrap. And I opened them up and I was like, what is this? Right? Really weird moment for me. But you kind of quickly get over that. Once you finish your first few models, you realize that the scale isn't as daunting as you once thought. Especially if your guy comes out looking somewhat decent, right? And if our camera would focus, there we go. You can see that we're almost done with the pauldrons here. That leg plate, I'm probably going to do off camera because I know I'm going to mess it up even more before I fix it, right? So we are going to go ahead and probably call it for right now. Another thing I realized I just missed, if you can see, if the camera will focus, please. There we go. Kind of those little, I don't know what you call that, like metallic strap there on the chest. I like to do those silver as well. And actually, I did do my other model like that, so I'm not a liar this time. So, off camera, I'm going to go ahead and take care of that, just for the sake of time and not wasting your guys' time. I'm also probably going to do the, we'll call them rivets on the pauldron here. We're going to finish those up, probably with more of our gold. And by the time we come back next episode, it should be looking a lot nicer. I know it looks kind of in a state now. We fixed the shoulder pads, mostly. But I'll try my best to clean this up. We'll come back and we'll finish it up. So, without further ado, I'd like to thank you guys for watching. If you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, comment, share it with your friends if you want, whatever. If you have any questions that you'd like answered, maybe I didn't explain something thoroughly, go ahead and just drop it in the comments and I will do my best to respond to it, right? So, thank you very much for watching and have a good day.